blast, wide open, woke sessions. Mind, body, soul, no second guessing. Spilling truths, no sugarcoat dressing. Wisdom hunting, cash and knowledge blessing. Hands to the streets, wide open the road. Eyes on the prize, ain't no time for jokes, lies and eyes. These days we roll, truth on the mic, destiny and vote. Hands to the streets, wide open.
Hey, this is Audi Rob with Wide Open World Podcast. We got the second half of that video for you for the crash retrieval information. I'm gonna bring that to you without further ado, so we can get into this excellent video here. Check it out. This is part 2. You have to go back and look at part 1.
One of the most mysterious stories of a crashed UFO with alien bodies preceded the well-known Roswell event by some 6 years. This case was first brought to investigators by Leo Springfield in his book UFO Crash Retrievals, The Inner Sanctum. He began a tantalizing account of a military-controlled UFO crash retrieval, which is still being researched today. The details of the case were sent to him in a letter from Charlotte Mann, who related her minister grandfather's deathbed confession of being summoned to pray over alien crash victims outside of Cape Girardeau, Missouri, in the spring of 1941. Reverend William Huffman had been an evangelist for many years, but had taken the resident minister reins of the Red Star Baptist Church in early 1941. Church records corroborate his employment there during the time period. After receiving this call to duty, he was immediately driven the 15-mile journey to some woods outside of town. Upon arriving at the scene of the crash, he saw policemen, fire department personnel, FBI agents, and photographers already mulling around the wreckage.
Wow.
He was soon asked to pray over 3 dead alien bodies. As he began to take in the activity around the area, his curiosity was first struck by the sight of the craft itself. Expecting a small plane of some type, he was shocked to see that the craft was disc-shaped, and upon looking inside, he saw hieroglyphic-type symbols indecipherable to him.
Well, now look at that. This is a minister that saw this for himself. He saw the aliens inside the craft and everything for himself. He thought he was going to pray for some victims from an airplane crash. But when he got there, he saw the crash. It wasn't a plane. But he prayed for the little aliens anyway. But well, this is something else. Check this out. Continue.
He then was shown the 3 victims, non-human as expected, but small alien bodies with large eyes, hardly a mouth or ears, and hairless. Immediately after performing his duties, he was sworn to secrecy by military personnel who had taken charge of the crash area. He witnessed those warnings being given to others at the scene as well. When he arrived back at his home, he was still in a state of mild shock and could not keep his story from his wife Floyd and his sons. This late-night family discussion would spawn the story that Charlotte Mann would hear from her grandmother in 1984 as she lay dying of cancer at Charlotte's home while undergoing radiation therapy. Charlotte was told the story over the span of several days, and although Charlotte had heard bits and pieces of this story before, she now wanted the full details. As her grandmother tolerated her last few days on this earth, Charlotte knew it was now or never to find out everything she could before this intriguing story was lost with the death of her grandmother. Other living supporting witnesses included Charlotte Mann's sister, who confirmed her story in a notarized sworn affidavit, and the living brother of the sheriff of 1941, Clarence R. Shade. He does remember hearing the account of the crash, yet does not have any details. and he did recall hearing of a spaceship with little people. There are also fire department records of the date of the crash. The information does confirm the military swearing department members to secrecy, and also the removal of all evidence from the scene by military personnel. Guy Huffman, Charlotte's father, also told the story of the crash and claimed he had in his possession a photograph of the dead alien. A few weeks after the crash, Huffman was apparently given a photo of two men holding one of the corpses found at the scene. Man's father loaned the photo to a friend but never saw it again. He showed the picture to a photographer friend of his, Walter Wayne Fisk. Fisk will neither confirm nor deny the existence of this photograph. What happened to the bodies of these aliens that crashed to Earth 6 years before Roswell? Could the saucer and physical evidence still exist from this crash, and perhaps it's sequestered away in a vault at Wright-Patterson? Famed UFO researcher Raymond Fowler first broke the details of another crash that occurred on May 20th, 1953. Fowler stated that his information came from engineer Fritz Werner, later identified as Arthur G. Stansel. Stansel graduated from Ohio University in 1949 and was first employed by the Air Materiel Command at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, as a mechanical engineer on testing Air Force aircraft engines. Dr. Eric Wayne, who was suspected of leading a reverse engineering team on alien craft, headed the installations division within the Office of Special Studies where Arthur worked. Stansel signed a legal affidavit vouching to the honesty of his testimony, which was released by Ray Fowler in UFO magazine in 1976. He was working for a company that had a government contract at a nuclear site in Nevada. He was summoned by his boss on May 21st of 1953 and sent on a secret assignment. After being flown to Phoenix, Arizona, he was placed on a bus with blacked-out windows and taken to a point some 4 hours' drive northwest of the city of Phoenix proper. The location was supposedly near the city of Kingman, Arizona. The bus was full of passengers, none of whom Stansel knew, and would not know as they were told not to communicate with each other. Arriving at the secret destination, 2 military light-alls illuminated a surreal scene in the late-night pre-dawn skies of the desert. The engineer was amazed to see a disc-shaped craft embedded into the sand. Stansel estimated its diameter to be about 30 feet. Military personnel surrounded the aluminum-like craft, which was brought down by either an internal explosion or was hit by military rockets. Stansel's duty was to calculate the speed of the craft, which he did. Afterwards, he began to glean details from some of the other personnel assigned to this off-the-record mission. He was told of a small cabin inside the craft and very small chairs. He did not get to look into the unknown craft himself. He was taken back when he peeked into a nearby medical tent. Inside was the small body of a creature about 4 feet tall. He asserts that the alien was wearing a type of skull cap and a silver suit. The suit seemed to be seamless. Back on the return trip home, all the members of the assignment were ordered to sign the Official Secrets Act and were warned not to discuss what they had seen with anyone. Before bringing the crash story to other UFO groups, Fowler did a thorough background check on Stansel and was satisfied to his authenticity and personal integrity. There was additional confirmation to the validity of the Arizona crash. Personnel at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base claimed to have been witness to the delivery from a crash site in Arizona. These witnesses claimed to have seen 3 small bodies packed in dry ice. The beings were reported as being about 4 feet tall, with large heads and brownish skin color. The time of the delivery perfectly coincides with the events put forth by Stansel. Unfortunately, the military personnel could not make their names public. Fowler maintains that several other witnesses have come forward in the years following the incident, but the lack of other facts and other testimony leave the case lacking. It would appear that prior to Roswell and after, UFOs were dropping quite frequently from the skies over America. Is it possible the United States were shooting them down? Or could something else have been responsible for the failures that downed these craft early in UFO history?
There was definitely shooting them down back then.
After World War II, the Cold War was warming up, and the U.S. military were painfully aware that foreign nations could fly over our airspace and spy on our advancements. UFO sightings were considered a threat in that they could be invaders, or the hysteria created by UFO sightings could mask an invasion from an enemy nation. The U.S. military and the CIA took UFO sightings seriously, and often fighter planes were on standby was detected by radar. In fact, events did occur that caused the military to panic and order jets to intercept UFOs over American skies. One such event is when UFOs overflew our nation's capital. From July 19th till the 29th, there were several incidents where UFOs flew over or near the Capitol. Radar confirmed the objects as airliners and fighter pilots chased the UFOs. The objects were seen and tracked on radar multiple times. The sightings of July 26th and 27th also made front-page headlines and even led President Harry Truman to personally call Captain Rupert, head of Project Blue Book, to ask for an explanation of the sightings. Rupert told the president that the sightings may have been caused by a temperature inversion, in which a layer of warm, moist air covers a layer of cool, dry air closer to the ground. This condition can cause radar signals to bend and give false returns. However, Rupert at that time had not yet interviewed any of the witnesses or conducted a formal investigation. The White House concern may possibly have resulted in an order to shoot down the UFOs, as reported in various international news service stories on July 29th of 1952. One such story reported that jet pilots have been placed on a 24-hour nationwide alert against the flying saucers, with orders to shoot them down. An Air Force Public Information Officer, Lieutenant Colonel Moncel Monte, confirmed the directive stating that the jets are and have been under orders to investigate unidentified objects and to shoot them down if they can't talk them down. This is not the only case where pilots were ordered to shoot down UFOs.
Wow. They were ordered to shoot them down.
An American fighter pilot, U.S. Airman Milton Torres, flying from an English air base at the height of the Cold War in 1957, was ordered to open fire on a massive UFO that lit up his radar, according to an account published by Britain's National Archives. The fighter pilot said he was ordered to fire a full salvo of rockets at the UFO moving erratically over the North Sea, but that at the last minute, The object picked up enormous speed and disappeared. The pilot said he and another airman were scrambled on the night of May 20th, 1957 to intercept an unusual bogey on radars at a Royal Air Force station at Manston, an airfield at the southeastern tip of England, about 75 miles from central London. This was a flying object with an unusual flight pattern, the pilot said. Ordered to fly at full throttle in cloudy weather, the pilot said he was given the order to fire a volley of 24 rockets at the mysterious object. As he closed in on the object to prepare for combat, the object began to move wildly before fading off his radar. The target gone, the mission was called off, and he returned to base to an odd reception. Torres said he was led to a man in civilian clothes who advised him that this would be considered highly classified and that it would not be discussed with anybody, not even his commander. Though we have pilot reports and other stories about airmen who were ordered to shoot down UFOs but were unsuccessful, we have no idea how many successful incidents have occurred. We do, however, have several crashed UFO reports, so it's logical to assume some of those downed UFOs may be the result of completed missions by pilots to shoot down unidentified flying objects.
So they've always been ordered to shoot down flying objects. And then they're going to talk about some cases where
a Russian story has revealed that an Air Force F-16 gunned down a UFO over Saudi Arabia during Desert Storm, with 5 nations trying to cover up the encounter. Colonel Gregor Petrikov, a Russian official, has come forward and says he was one of the first experts at the crash site in a barren desert region 250 miles northeast of Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The Americans won't admit it was a UFO their plane shot down, but the debris was not any known aircraft. The Saudis were so frightened that they asked American, British, and French investigators to come to the crash site immediately. Petrikov was visiting in Riyadh at the time when he and a small Russian team were able to inspect the wreckage before American forces from Desert Storm arrived. The craft was circular and made of a material never seen before. About a third of it seemed to be missing, possibly blown away by the American missiles. The Saudis wouldn't let them touch anything, but he saw instruments, machinery, and other things that completely baffled them. He said the markings on the instrument panels and dials were not in any language he was familiar with. It seemed to be a relatively small craft, about 15 feet across. There were 3 chairs, probably for its crew. They were so small that they seemed to have been made for children. Most amazing was the fact that there were no bodies at the crash site, nor did there appear to be an engine in the craft. The American missiles may have scored a direct hit on the engine, causing it to disintegrate, but they checked with the Saudi radar technicians who claimed their instruments didn't show anyone ejecting or bailing out of the craft. Search helicopters were all over the area, which is a desert, and they did not spot any survivors in the vicinity of the crash. During interviews with radar technicians, Petrikov was told that the blip identified as the UFO appeared out of nowhere as 4 F-16s were streaking towards Baghdad. One of the American jets broke from formation and headed for the UFO. The craft started moving southwest away from the jet, and the American pilot gave chase. When the F-16 was within 3 miles, the craft seemed to fire something at the plane but missed. The American then fired 2 missiles. Both hit the target. There was a terrific explosion, and then the crash. When American investigators arrived, Petrikov mentioned he and his team were immediately ordered out of the area and flown back to Riyadh. There were things they didn't want the Russian team to see. The fact that the craft was circular, that there were no survivors, and that it was made of a foreign substance. Petrikov said members of his team were able to sneak pictures without the knowledge of the Saudis or Americans, but he was ordered to turn them over to Russian authorities the next day. Petrikov said American Army engineers gathered up all debris and carted it away for shipment to the United States. Reports from Area 51, Wright-Patterson, and crashed UFO encounters have all mentioned UFO craft seen with huge holes in them, or what appears to be blast areas. Is it possible that we are shooting down UFOs? And could the government be lying about UFOs posing a threat to our sovereignty? Or could it simply be that we shoot them down to salvage their advanced technology for our own technological advancement?
That's what it looked like. Just what it looked like.
In the late 1980s, at the now famous Area 51 in Nevada, a man came forward who claimed to have worked as a scientist and engineer, reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology at a site called S4. His name is Bob Lazar. He claimed to have passed several tests by U.S. military officials and was warned that should he ever reveal anything, his family would be executed. Lazar stated the space probe on which he worked creates its own gravitational pull and can pull the fabric of space and time toward it. Lazar claimed to have worked in 1988 and 1989 as a physicist at S4, allegedly located at Papoose Lake southwest of the top-secret Area 51 facility near Groom Lake, Nevada. According to Lazar, S4 serves as a hidden military location for the study and research of extraterrestrial spacecraft or flying saucers using reverse engineering. Lazar claims he saw 9 different extraterrestrial vehicles there and has provided detailed information on the mode of propulsion and other technical details of a disc-shaped vehicle he called the Sport model. He also claims to have been working on the fuel, an element with an atomic number of 115, which allowed the spacecraft to warp space and essentially pull the desired destination toward the ship. This method of travel allegedly enabled alien travelers to cross vast distances with minimal three-dimensional movement. At the time, no one had any knowledge of Element 115, and Lazar's story was considered a hoax. However, Element 115 was discovered by human scientists in 2003, which gave Lazar's story much more credence. Lazar's educational and professional background cannot be either completely verified or refuted, a situation that Lazar and his supporters attribute to government manipulation of records and other deletions of history specifically done to discredit him and his claims regarding Area 51, S4, and his other claims regarding alien technology. Lazar said he encountered several flying saucers. He says his first thought was the saucers were secret terrestrial aircraft whose test flights must have been responsible for many UFO reports. On closer examination, and from having been shown multiple briefing documents, Lazar came to the conclusion that the discs were of extraterrestrial origin. Lazar also claims that he was given introductory briefings describing the historical involvement by extraterrestrial beings with this planet for the past 10,000 years. The beings allegedly originate from the first and second planets within the Zeta Reticuli star system and are therefore referred to as Zeta Reticulans, popularly called Greys. According to Lazar, these beings were referred to as the kids within the program, or as gourds among the personnel. Lazar claims that the S4 base proper contains 9 aircraft hangars built into the side of the mountain range, with hangar doors constructed on an angle matching the slope of the mountain. The doors to the hangars are camouflaged with natural material to blend in with the side of the mountain and the adjoining desert floor. He claims the site is protected from all ground-based viewing angles by its location within an isolated valley. Inside these hangars are, according to Lazar, the laboratories and scientists studying extraterrestrial spacecraft. In 2015, Dr. Robert Krangle, a physicist and contractor for Los Alamos, the contractor for S4, came forward and confirmed that Lazar did in fact work at Los Alamos, and he had been in several meetings with him. This was the validation UFO researchers were looking for to confirm Lazar's credentials. Both Lazar and Krangle's projects were compartmentalized. Therefore, neither knew what the other was working on. But the fact they were there proves Lazar did have a top-secret clearance and did indeed work on secret projects. At this point, the naysayers' arguments fall apart. It's highly likely that at this moment, some scientists somewhere are currently working on UFO craft and back engineering their technology for our government's sole use.
Yeah, we got this video going off right here. We're going to close
The
this one
Kecksford
out right here.
UFO incident.
We're going to go ahead and slow this one down right here. Get back with you because now we got another part that we're about to get into on this crash retrieval program. This is the second part, so it is going to go into a 3-part program. I didn't want to make it too much longer than this. It's almost a half an hour now. So, yes, there is a whole lot of information out here on the crash retrieval program. They have been doing this for a very, very, very long time. They said that U.S. has also an electro pulse radar that they pulse weapon that they use to shoot at the UFOs, which disrupts them like a pulse touchdown, somewhat of an electrical pulse system that interferes with them with the instruments that they use to use the energy of the electromagnetic energy that they use. That's the 0 point. So what they do is that pulse shuts that down briefly, and then it interferes with their craft. So then they come down. Yeah, they've been doing this for a while. It's very dirty, but yeah. But all this stuff is coming out, and everything has to come out before 2030. So let's get ready for the ride, people. I'm all here for it. This is Ali Ride, Wide Open World Podcast. Holla back, peace, love, and light.
That's wide open woke sessions. Mind, body, soul, no second guessing. Spilling truths, no sugarcoat dressing. Wisdom hunting, cash and knowledge blessing. Hands to the streets, wide open the road. Eyes on the prize, ain't no time for jokes, lies and eyes. These days we roll, truth on the mic, destiny and vote. Hands to the streets, wide open.